Hello everybody, welcome back. So what are we going to do today? Today we're going to make an amazing one-pot meal, which is very easy to prepare and delicious. Namely, what we'll be making is a tarragon braised chicken with root vegetables. And believe me when I tell you, you're going to want to make this all the time once you learn how to make it. We'll be using a Dutch oven, and I have a beautiful Dutch oven that my daughter gave to me. Thank you, Nicolette. We're going to dive into chemistry a little bit more today because we're going to use chemistry knowledge to make some what would be tough chicken thighs, juicy and delicious and full of flavor. We'll talk more on that later. But mainly what we're going to be making today is some braised chicken thighs with tarragon and root vegetables. I have a wonderful Dutch oven I'll be using for that. And one of the beauties of this also today is that we're going to have the opportunity to make something in one pot, very little mess, very easy to prepare, and the whole family is going to love it. So we'll start off by preparing our chicken by adding it to a light brine. And the brine is going to help us with this idea of what we call osmosis. And I'll talk more about that later. Later on, we're going to brown our chicken in our beautiful Dutch oven here. And we'll be thinking about this whole idea of what we call the Maillard reaction. The Maillard reaction is what's responsible for all the wonderful smells and flavor, that umami that we talked about before, that I've mentioned in my description. And we can really bring out the whole umami today by knowing how to do that. So in short, we really need to get the meat to a certain temperature, around 300 or so degrees Fahrenheit. And that browning effect, like when you cook a steak or when you cook toast, and all the smell you get is really a result of all those hundreds of chemical reactions that form from the amino acids and the sugars that are in the food. So maybe a little too much chemistry for you, but I'm always excited about chemistry, thought I'd mention it. So all you really need to know is that if we get things the right temperature, we do the right technique, we can tap into these chemistry principles and the food will be delicious. We're also going to be concerned with this thing called hydrolysis, because when we put this into the oven with a little bit of liquid, the water molecules are going to basically split up these collagen fibers and break them down into gelatin and make the food tasty and delicious and very tender. Okay, to begin our preparation of this amazing one-pot meal, what we're going to do is get our chicken ready. It's actually very simple. Now, you can skip the step if you want, but if you want, you make sure your chicken is nice and juicy and delicious and full of flavor. What I like to do is I like to brine my chicken lightly and set it aside for about a half hour before I actually prepare the rest of the meal. Now, so if we want to talk about the chemistry side of this, at this aspect of the recipe, what we're talking about is something called osmosis. So what's happening is when we put the salt on the chicken, on the outside of the chicken, it's going to form a highly concentrated solution of sodium chloride. For those of you who want to get technical with it. And what happens with osmosis is things go from high concentration to lower concentration to try and reach an equilibrium. So what's going to happen is, since there's less salt in the meat, inside the meat, the salt is going to migrate to the lower concentration to form the equilibrium. And in effect, it's going to infuse deep into the meat muscle, which is what we want. So we get all that salt flavor all the way through. Okay, so I have some beautiful organic chicken breast here. And what we're going to do is just going to sort of lightly salt. And don't worry, it's going to all infuse inside the meat. It seems like we're maybe adding a little bit too much salt, but trust me, it's going to be delicious. So we're going to work that onto all the pieces just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place them into a Ziploc bag. And then what we can do is kind of massage the salt into them a little bit from the outside of the bag, so we don't have to put our hands on the chicken any more than we have to. So there we go. I'm also going to add a little pepper. Probably could have done that while they were laid out flat, but we'll mix everything around in the bag and work that pepper flavor in too. So what I'm going to do is just kind of seal off the top of the Ziploc bag. So as you can see, what I'm doing, I'm just kind of massaging the chicken a little bit to work that salt in. especially on the bottom. This on the bottom is where this salt's going to infuse a little better because the skin is not forming the barrier. So we're just going to set it like that and just kind of wait for about a half hour. Now, if you're going to be much longer than that, you really should probably keep it in the fridge. But since we're not going to be cooking this and it is salted, I think we're going to be fine for about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, so we have all ingredients ready to go. We're going to basically start brining off our chicken. So let's cook. So I have some chicken thighs that I had brined previously. And what we're going to do is we're going to just dry off the excess moisture from them. Put it on a paper towel. Kind of get the extra water out so we can get them to brown nicely. If you have too much water, what's going to happen is they're going to steam. So to my warming pan, my Dutch oven, I'm going to add some extra light olive oil. Now, some people might put a little bit of flour on these, dredge them, that's fine if you want to do that. I'm saying it's really not necessary. See, the oil is very hot already. Okay, so we're going to add our chicken with the skin side down, as you can see, making sure they're not sticking, and so far that's looking pretty good. You want to be careful not to have the heat too high because it'll create a lot of smoke. So what we're going to do is really just going to cook off our chicken thighs and then set them aside. Okay, so these are looking pretty good. We're going to turn them over, let them cook on the other side. We haven't done much with this and already smells amazing. Which brings us to another important idea. People sometimes ask the question, why does the food taste different than it smells? Well, it's because the chemicals that produce the smell that go into the ear can actually be different than the chemicals that are in the food. Fun fact. Now it's probably a good idea to turn on your oven, preheat your oven, so it's nice and hot by the time you're ready to add your pan. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer my meat, the rest of it, to the side. I'll start adding my vegetables. Now I'm going to start by adding some tricolored carrots. These carrots are very colorful. The taste is almost the same flavor, but it adds a little bit of contrast to our dish. Okay. 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 Now we're going to add some potatoes. And I like to get these little potatoes. Sometimes you can even find them tricolor. The market I shop at didn't really have any fresh ones out of the tricolor, but it does add some more contrast. So I like to cut these up a little bit, maybe cut them in half. At least one side can get the oil. Add the rest of those in. We're going to add chopped onion. I don't want that part, top part. And we're going to rough chop some of our garlic as well. So what's next? All right, so we want to keep this stuff going, and we want to, once again, reinforce this whole idea of the Maillard reaction. In the case of the potatoes, we also, and also the carrots and onions, the sugars when they cook, they actually do what's called caramelization. You've probably heard that word before. Maillard reaction speaks more to that combination of the protein, or more specifically the amino acids, right, and the sugars together when heating form hundreds of chemical reactions and these beautiful flavors, umami, we talked about. This is okay, so I have some fresh tarragon now. What I want to do is I want to just chop some up. Now, you don't have to use the sticks, so it probably won't hurt you, but nobody wants to eat sticks and have sticks in their food, so you can just kind of pull it off like that. Same thing like with rosemary, you could do this about the same idea. And just sort of chiffonade or rough chop it. I have some more stick here. I'm going to pull that stick out and just kind of group it all together and chop it up pretty fine. I use two good size tarragon sticks. Now, you might be asking, if you haven't used it before, what tarragon is. Tarragon is sort of an interesting spice. It's used a lot in classic French cooking. And one of the ways I could describe it, I suppose, is it has sort of a licorice type of flavor if you eat it straight. But when it's in food, it has that kind of nice flavor. You say, that's an interesting taste, but you're not really sure what it is. Well, it might be tarragon. You might have had it in some chicken soup, if you're at a fancy restaurant, or other kinds of chicken dishes. It's frequently used. I'm going to work that tarragon in. And already, you can smell it. The smell is amazing. Okay, and the colors are just out of this world. I'm also going to take a lemon. I want to add the juice of one lemon, but not just yet. We're going to add our liquid just in a while. I'm also going to add a couple spoons of Dijon mustard and a little salt and pepper. We can add a little salt right now. Just be careful with the salt. Never go directly in, because once you add, you can't take away. Kind of coat the top of your food. Right? When we feel like our vegetables are roasted pretty well, see, that's the key. We want them to roast. Bring out some of those flavors. On the bottom, you can see, if you take a look at the bottom of that pan, you can see how the caramelization is occurring, bringing out the sugars, creating those sugars, the starch, the sugar, I should say. And what you can also do is you can roast your vegetables in the oven if you want, but as I said at the beginning, I'm promising a one-pot deal, so we don't want to go against that, right? We're trying to make it easy for you. But certainly, you're welcome to make the modifications you see are going to work best for you. So this part will take a little time, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. The longer you go, the better, because you give those vegetables a chance to get that roasting action going on the bottom of the pan. Okay, so our vegetables are looking really good. So now we're going to continue building layers. These are roasted beautifully. We'll take a little closer look to see that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to deglaze the pan. Use some bone broth for that. Now I'm also going to add some lemon juice. So deglazing speaks to just basically scraping all that flavor that's stuck to the bottom, all that caramelization, right? So I'm going to add a little bit of bone broth first. You can use chicken stock. If you want to use white wine, or dry white wine, I wouldn't use more than half a cup. But the thing is, since I'm going to be adding Dijon mustard, which is has that acid to it, I don't think it's necessary really to add the wine. So I'm just going to kind of work the bottom of the pan. You'll see that the liquid is immediately getting nice and dark from all that caramelization on the bottom of the pan. Beautiful. It almost looks like beef stock. So trust me, we talked about using chemistry to build flavors. This is a perfect example right here. Okay. So I'm going to keep adding. Just notice I'm stirring with a wooden spoon. I heard my daughter's voice say to me, please don't use metal on these pans. So as precaution, so I don't scratch the bottom, I'm going to use, so I've added just about enough stock, just a little bit more than coat the vegetables. Just remember that this is going to go in the oven. You might add just a tad too much. That's okay. It's going to evaporate because since we are braising and since we have nice crispy chicken, we don't want to cover this because the chicken will run the risk of getting a little soggy. So we're going to keep building layers. Yeah, I'm going to add actually a little parsley to give it that herbaceous flavor, right? A little bit of bitterness and also some color, more color. Yes, we have color with the tarragon, but the parsley also adds another flavor profile for us. So we'll add some parsley, fresh parsley. We'll add some to garnish it later on as well. We're going to come in with a couple spoons of Dijon mustard of your choice. I found the store brand is just as good as the name brand. So we got roughly about 2 good healthy spoons of Dijon mustard. If you have a bigger recipe, you might add a little bit more. You can always taste it and decide whether you want to make it a little bit more zesty. Now, as it is right now, I could eat it just like that. It smells so good. So I'm going to just squeeze a couple lemons, 1 lemon actually, and these ones don't have too many seeds, so I think I'm in pretty good shape. Kind of run it through my spoon to catch the seeds. Beautiful. Work that lemon juice in. So you don't need much more than 1 lemon, 1 small lemon. So we're building layers of flavor. I'm going to add a little pepper. I already added some salt. A little bit of, maybe like a half a teaspoon of pepper. I'll let that cook off a little bit more. Then what we're going to do is we're going to put our chicken on, let it reduce a little bit more. Then we'll put our chicken right on top and put it into the oven. Okay, so I allowed this to reduce for a little while, maybe 5-10 minutes. And what I'm going to do is just add my chicken, turn my burner off. I'm going to add my chicken, put it right on top of the vegetables. Almost like a jigsaw puzzle to make those pieces fit. My grandson would be very happy about this. Nolan or Evie, they like doing puzzles. In fact, my oldest daughter, all my kids really used to love doing puzzles. I don't know why I thought of that, but strangest things, right? So anyway, we have our chicken all in the pot, and it's braising beautifully. And what's going to happen is we're going to put this into the oven and just let it simmer for about 45 minutes. We hope that the skins are going to get nice and crispy, and obviously the chicken's going to be tender and delicious. What we're also going to find is that the liquid is going to reduce and form more of a thick type of solution because of the starch in the potatoes and the starch in the other root vegetables such as the carrot. This into the oven that we have preheated at 350, and we'll come back about 45 minutes and see how it's doing. Okay, our food is ready. Let's take it out of the oven and see how it looks. The whole house smells amazing. Oh yeah, liquid has reduced and the flavor is gonna be magnificent, I tell already. Let's bring it in a little closer and take a look. Okay, so let's put a little on the plate and see what it looks like. The chicken skin is still nice and crispy on top. And we can get some of those beautiful vegetables from underneath. Oh yeah, it's amazing. I'm gonna grab a couple of those potatoes. Okay, maybe a couple more carrots. Tricolored carrots. Maybe we could take a little fresh parsley, put it on top for color. Looks good. See what it tastes like. Wow. Those potatoes have so much flavor. See how the meat is. So tender. Look at that. So as you can see, this dish is very easy to prepare. And we did it all in one pot, packed with flavor. Whole family's going to love it. I hope you can try it too. God bless.